Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for die-hard Houston fans from a die-hard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., of course, your favorite die-hard Houston sports fan podcaster, at least your favorite that you're currently listening to. I am an actor and writer who, when asked, have I seen you in anything? I can confidently always just say no. No, you haven't. Let's not even play this game. Of course, I am a Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. I used to go to Waterworld. Remember Waterworld? Astroworld gets all the love, but, Waterworld, it wasn't great. But I'm just saying I remember it, I guess. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in Los Angeles, and now I'm podcasting. That's what happens once you hit 10 years out here. You're placed in a polycule and given a podcast. Welcome to said podcast, what my brother lovingly calls the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. You can check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience. In the intro, I always say I started Space Cadet Sports as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a diehard Houston Astros fan. Definitely, all the media is doom and gloom or worse, the national media haters. The Texans don't get as much hate. Obviously, the Rockets aren't anybody's favorite team either. But, we love our teams here and root for them. But we also try to discuss the ins and outs of the team without too much homerism. Keyword here is try. We try to be reasonable and not too hot-takey or reactionary. And now that football season is here, we also are happy to include the Texans into the mix. We are recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles. I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla the dog is here with me, y'all. She is definitely most people's favorite part of the podcast. As the season is going on here, I'm definitely trying to work a way to get some guests on the podcast. I'd like to talk to some friends, some fans, and some people I know have some opinions about these teams as well. I also am working in a way that you can call into the podcast. Obviously, you can't call in live, but you can call into the podcast and leave me a voicemail to let me know your opinions as well. That is at speakpipe.com/spacecadetsports. That's speakpipe.com/spacecadetsports. Carla is here, as I mentioned. She's everybody's favorite part. She may get on mic from time to time. She usually does at least once a week to let you know what her hot take is. She has all the hot takes on the podcast. Today is an off day, Goof-Off. That's why everything's so loosey-goosey, even straight up out of the gate. The vibes are loosey-goosey here. I'm feeling funny. I'm feeling funny. I guess I'm feeling ill. I hope not. Yeah, we don't want that. But yeah, I'm feeling goofy is what I'm trying to say. I'm hoping I'm funny. You hope, you pray, but you don't worry about it. What does an audience know? But today on the off day Goof-Off, we're trying to combat the rough vibes that are out there for baseball fans right now in Houston, who are slowly putting their Texans jersey on right now. I'm here to let you know, fret not, baseball fans. I know how emotional we can be. We're an emotional bunch. But Tío Paul is here to cheer you up with an off-day Goof-Off podcast. Today we are talking umpires. We're checking in with your emotions as Astros fans. We're going to dare to look at the playoff rotation. Then we're going to get a little bit happier as we talk Texans. We're also going to preview the Astros series versus the A's And the Dynamo make the cut again. The Houston Dynamo make the podcast. That's right. Welcome to the off day, Goof-Off. Folks, let's just dive into the goofiness. Let's have some fun here. I hope you're having a good day. I truly do. A Monday morning after a Texans win has to feel a little good, folks. I know I'm feeling good. I know a lot of people are wringing their hands right now over the Astros, but we'll kind of get to it. You know, as y'all know, I always get on the podcast and I say, if nothing else, the reason why I can talk about the Astros is that I watch all of the games. And I watch every pitch. You know, I even watch some Space Cowboys games on the off days. You know, poor Carla, she has to watch a lot of minor league baseball. I put sports on in the background for her. Sometimes it's Scooby-Doo. She does like her cartoons, Powerpuff Girls. Trying to think. Bear in the Big Blue House, that's good for dogs. Bluey, you know, she watches some of that, but a lot of times, you know, I put on some sports in the background for her. So she actually watches a lot of minor league baseball. I watch a lot of games. You know, I have some observations, obviously. I talk for hours on end on a podcast minimally about what I think about the Houston Astros. But something I've noticed, and it's something I feel like other people have noticed as well, but I just wanted to jump on to say I've noticed this too, and, you know, riff a little too on this idea, is that ever since Angel Hernandez retired, it seems like all of his bad calls were evenly dispersed amongst the rest of the league umpires. You know, I try not to complain about umpiring, refereeing on this podcast. You know, it's part of the game. EA, it's in the game. You know, it's not something I like to be part of the game, for sure, is terrible officiating, but it is part of the game, and to complain about officiating and the umps is kind of something I don't like to take up too much of my time, because it just is part of life. It's part of it, you know. I complain about so many things. It just seems like a gimme to complain about. Anybody can have a podcast where you complain about the umpires. But ever since Angel Hernandez retired, it really does seem like the bad calls have kind of gone up just across the board. You know, I guess it's time to speculate. We hate to speculate too much, but this is something we can speculate on this podcast. Did a spirit leave Angel Hernandez's body when he retired, and all of a sudden he can see again? You know, he's out there in the wild. He can now read in restaurants without his cell phone light on. He no longer needs corrective lenses. You know, actually, he can see into the future now. That's it. He's now a precog solving crimes. But what kind of police state do we live in that uses precogs? That's the new series Minority Report on Peacock starring Angel Hernandez. You know, I don't know what's happening. It seems there's so many bad calls out there. It really does seem like the spirit of bad zones left Hernandez and now haunts new men. I don't know. I mean, everybody's human. To err is human, as the Bard once said, I believe. I don't know. Might have been Christopher Marlowe. Who knows? It's really goofy here, but you know, I'm sorry I'm feeling so goofy on this day. It's what off day goof off pods are for. I allow myself to get even sillier than normal, but I really do feel like the officiating is pretty horrendous right now. Some of the zones that the Astros have seen have been pretty inconsistent. One of my major quips always is that if you're going to have a bad zone, at least make it consistently bad on both sides of the ball, so that the pitchers and the hitters know what to look for, to know at least that you have a zone and that it's just a little askew. But there's just been bad zones all over the place. That's going to be part of baseball, but we're not the only team that feels it. But it hurts when you're trying to win games late in the season. You know, it's like it's really getting down to the wire here. So that's why that has been haunting me. And speaking of getting down to the wire, I guess let's just really talk about it. Will the Astros put it together in time this season. That's what a lot of Astros fans are thinking and wringing their hands over together. They're quavering. They're quavering over this, folks. Will they put it together? Will they put it together on Saturday Night Live? I don't know. I'm always going in. That's the only impression that I regularly go into is Don Pardo, sorry, Mr. Pardo, the late Mr. Pardo. It's now Daryl Hammond that does the voice on Saturday Night Live. But I always go into that voice for whatever reason. Whenever my voice starts shaking, it's just such a funny voice to me. But I know that a lot of people are worried about their Astros. I know that after that last game at Minute Maid Park, a lot of fans are not very optimistic about the Astros right now, but let's kind of look at the standings, okay? The AL West standings here, the Houston Astros are 77 and 66, while the Seattle Mariners are 73 and 71, putting the Seattle Mariners 4.5 games back from the Astros. At this point, I try not to be the guy that says to go read the blog or check out another podcast, but sometimes it does help, if I went off on a subject and, don't really want to go off on it again. So, check out the Substack for the article, The Long and Winding Road. The Substack is spacecadetsports.substack.com. Go check that out. I explained the path to the playoffs for the Houston Astros as, in my eyes, in only the way that I can. While it might feel like a huge gut punch to lose, remember the Diamondbacks are an incredible hitting team. The D-backs are second in the National League in hits, second in home runs, first in RBIs. They're the third lowest in strikeouts, the second highest in batting average, the first in on-base percentage, the second in slugging, the first in OPS, and the second in OPS plus. That is incredible when you look at the offensive powerhouses of the National League. They're besting the Dodgers, the Padres. They're really doing great offensive power numbers out there in the National League. So the fact that the Astros were able to definitively win 2 games and almost miraculously make the third game competitive says a lot about this Houston Astros. I think, when we're talking about can they put it together this season, I really think they can. The Long and Winding Road article, I explained that if the Astros win the majority of their series, they can end up with a very good win-loss record at the end of the year. And basically, for the Mariners have to win all of their series in order to win the AL West. My LG dryer is serenading me to let me know that my laundry is done. Look, y'all, I gotta multitask here. Not just because there's something broken with my brain, but because I have a lot of stuff to do today. On this off day Goof-Off, I have to goof off. But in order to goof off, I have to do my laundry. And this kind of sounds like I'm about to do some kind of live read ad, but I'm not sponsored by anything. So I guess just shout out to LG Dryers. Thank you for serenading me. But basically, I'm saying, the long and winding road for the Astros is not quite as long and winding as it is for the Seattle Mariners. So, it's not that we should depend on the Mariners losing or not being able to capitalize by winning all of their series. The Astros just have to win the majority of their series to get there. And the way that they're playing, I'm betting that they can win the majority of their series. They won the series versus the Diamondbacks. Of course, we want them to sweep. Of course, I want them to win every single game possible. But the reality of the situation is the team will not win every single game possible. It's impossible to do that. It truly is. So the fact that they won the series is incredible. The fact that they lost the last game in that fashion is absolutely gut-wrenching, but you can't just think about those gut-wrenching feelings. You have to kind of look at this team in total. On top of the Diamondbacks being such an incredible offensive team, Justin Verlander is also tweaking his mechanics on top of being an aging pitcher. He lost his breaking pitch, and it was pretty obvious. So, for the professional hitters, it must have been incredibly and insanely obvious that he had no breaking pitch. They just weren't swinging at it as soon as they knew it was a breaking pitch. As soon as they were sitting fastball, and even if Justin Verlander is able to locate that fastball, even if he has a good fastball, if they're just sitting fastball and swinging at fastballs, they can do some damage, especially if you look at all those offensive numbers that this team has. So, obviously, it's gut-wrenching. Obviously, we didn't want to win. We didn't want to lose. But when you're at a rock and a hard place, when you're pitching Justin Verlander, who's trying to figure it out, when you're playing a team as hungry to win as the Diamondbacks are because they don't want to get swept, and they're such a good offensive team, it looks like the Astros were destined to lose this one. The hitters knew it wasn't going to be a competitive pitch, and there was nothing Justin Verlander could do to make the hitters bite on his off-speed and breaking pitches as he was struggling to locate. Let's listen to Justin Verlander talk. I don't know why I said let's listen like I'm throwing it to a clip, like I have that capability. I'm going to quote Justin Verlander. Let's be clear here. Justin Verlander said, and I quote, "I felt good physically, but obviously the results were atrocious. Guys hit a lot of my pitches, though." End quote. So, it's like the results were atrocious, but he's feeling good. JV explains what I was trying to say a lot better than me in quote, when he's talking about his off-speed pitches. Quote, "I found myself behind a lot because I wasn't able to land them, and they had some damage on some fastballs because of that. I thought the fastball was better overall today. The off-speed was a bit inconsistent location-wise, which got me in a little bit of trouble. Ironically, I thought the stuff was better than Cincinnati, particularly my feel, especially the fastball." So yeah, Justin Verlander's got a feel for his fastball. He's finally able to, he's in a good place with his number one pitch, but he obviously struggled with that breaking and off-speed stuff, and he wasn't able to locate it. And, he's saying it himself. That's what they had damage on. They had damage on the fastball because he wasn't able to set it up. I think right now a lot of people, are starting to say, is starting to freak out about Justin Verlander and his future with the Astros this season. And I get it, but let's just put a pin in that temporarily. We started off talking about all the hand-wringing about the Houston Astros and will they put it together in time for the season and the long and winding road to get them to the playoffs that they've taken this season. But let's look at the numbers. Let's just, I'm talking about logic here, folks. Let's get out of those emotions a little bit here. Let's look at Fangraphs. Fangraphs power ranking / playoff odds update here for you. The Astros are ranked 5 on Fangraphs in the power rankings, and they are in what the Fangraphs calls the, quote, best of the best tier. And that includes, in order, the Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Phillies, and then your Houston Astros. Fangraphs also says that the Astros has a 97% chance to go to the playoffs and a 10.9% chance for the World Series. These nerds are high on your Houston Astros, folks. So I know that game didn't feel good. I know the feeling of Justin Verlander maybe not being able to contribute to a playoff run makes us all quake in our boots, makes us all quaver like Don Pardo. But folks, I think that this team is overall going to pull it together. I think that the people watching and paying close attention to the statistics are betting on them doing that as well, or else they wouldn't be so highly ranked. But if we're so emotional, maybe we should look at the more emotional power rankings. The Major League Baseball power rankings that are made by the journalists. Sometimes those rankings follow more of a narrative that can be a little more emotional based as opposed to just statistics that Fangraphs is kind of pouring over. So where do they rest with the journalists? Also, number 5, the Astros are 5 on the Major League Baseball power rankings, but the order for the journalists are completely wild compared to the stats nerds. So, while they might be 5, the top 5 for Major League Baseball power rankings are, in order, the Dodgers, Phillies, Yankees, Orioles, and then your Houston Astros. So obviously both think the Dodgers are tops, but the Major League Baseball power rankings has a little East Coast bias here with the Yankees and Orioles popping in the mix instead of the Diamondbacks and Padres. Or maybe that's a West Coast bias for your fan graphs, and everybody on the West Coast over here just really believes in analytics. And in New York, you love your stories. No, I really don't know. I mean, I'm being a little overly general for comedic effect. I believe that's called hyperbole. And everybody loves when you clinically explain comedy. So let's do more of that on the podcast. But, I really think that which way you put it, the Astros are a lot better than we anticipate them to be. And we're worried about Justin Verlander because we love Justin Verlander. We want to root for Justin Verlander in the playoffs. Right? That's what we want. But the fact that he might not be there for us scares us and makes us concerned. So let's kind of, I think Justin Verlander figures it out. If push come to shove, it's off day Goof-Off. If I can't be pushed into some having to make a take or having to take a stand, what else are we going to do here today? So I'll say it here, book it. I think Justin Verlander figures it out. I think this isn't the last we've seen of Justin Verlander. We don't need to worry about this being his last Verlandian, or the last time we see Verlander in Minute Maid. I think he figures something out. But the timeline in which he figures it out is really what we're concerned about, or what we should be concerned about as Astros fans. I think that the time Justin Verlander has to figure this out is what concerns me. I think that this next start is the most important start for Justin Verlander as a Houston Astro this season, because it really will determine whether or not he is going to be looked at as a playoff rotation piece, or if he's going to be looked at as if he can even just finish off the season in the rotation, honestly. I think that I'm betting that he figures it out enough to get another start. I'm not saying his next start he's going to be vintage Verlander and he's going to be zipping his fastball all over the place and striking people out. I think he's going to make some kind of mechanical change to figure out that breaking pitch or an off-speed pitch and figure his way to game and battle in this start to prove that he still has stuff in the tank. He is a smart pitcher. He is a hard-working pitcher. My bet is that this next start, Justin Verlander maybe goes 5 innings, probably gives up some hits, has a bit of a battle of a game, but does enough to show that the Houston Astros can still use him this season, and he continues to build on that success to work his way towards a playoff rotation, at least look from Joe Espada. And then going forward, I do think Justin Verlander potentially has, some more seasons in him as a professional pitcher. I do know that that's what he wants. I think if he can figure it out, that is in the cards for him. But whether or not that will be in a Houston Astros jersey, I don't think that this. I hate to be. I think that's the bit of a bummer news here. Is I do think that Houston Astros will not have a need for Justin Verlander going into the future. So this is kind of Justin Verlander's last hurrah in an Astros uniform, and that's why we want him in the playoff rotation. So while it's scary for us to talk about the playoff rotation here at the podcast, there really was never a moment. Jokingly, I was always looking at the official Space Cadet Sports Houston Astros panic meter here at the podcast, where if we check it out, we are still in the hate watching level in the panic meter. This is still probably lower than a quarter up on the thermometer of panic. I've never panicked too much this season. That being said, I think that we've never really panicked that hard, but also simultaneously, if we're looking at the we're back, I never had a we're back moment this season. The Astros have continued to fluctuate, having to deal with a stretch of games where they're losing or they drop a series they shouldn't drop, and kind of have to turn the page to kind of find their groove once again, or their offense is grooving and their pitching isn't, or their pitching is grooving and their offense isn't. So this team has never really had a we're back moment, and for that reason, it's really hard to confidently say let's make a playoff rotation, but since we just talked about the Fangraphs power rankings and the Major League Baseball power rankings and their odds, let's go ahead and buy into the hype as Astros fans and make those playoff rotations for what we think here. I already explained why I believe Justin Verlander deserves one more start. The only situation in which Justin Verlander doesn't start this season is if we really are in a win or lose situation and it's obvious Ronell is rested or Spaghetti is right. Ronell has to be rested for a start, or Spaghetti is just in the really in the groove. But let's kind of do it. Let's pick a playoff rotation here. If we had to pick a rotation today, that seems a little easier. So I'm thinking about the end of the season, what I'm projecting. What I'm projecting where I'm hoping and projecting everyone will be at the end of the season. So number one, I'm going to go with Framber La Grasa. He is in the zone, and the playoffs, can beat the best of pitchers up. But the way he's going, I really feel like he is our ace, and you ride that confidence. You hope he dominates and just anchors this rotation and just really never gets kind of flummoxed by any situation and just keeps dominating. And even if he takes a step back, is able to kind of regroup and be his Framber self. I think he has that in him. I think he can anchor this rotation. He seems in the zone. I think he's our ace. I think he finishes the year strong and continues down that path. For number two in the rotation, I'm going with Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown has been in the zone as well, and while Framber is laid back and smiling and makes me very happy to see Framber not in his head and letting the little things go, Diesel is the exact opposite. Diesel is pissed off on that mound and is intense. He looks unhappy to see you. He's so far in his head. You're in the batter's box and you're in his head too. It just seems scary. He seems terrifying. The guy is competing and the results are right. He's just incredible. You ride this wave that Hunter is on as long as you can and hope he goes deep into the playoffs. For number three, I'm going with Yusei Kikuchi. The Astros might have to play a wild card series this season, which would mean, a best of three series, which could really, this is kind of a cutoff point. Sorry, just making sure. I thought I accidentally stopped recording. I said cutoff point and cut off the recording like a fool. No, but this is kind of the end of the 8-team, I guess, is what I'm saying with the playoff rotation. I think Kikuchi deserves this right now, the way he's been going, and I think he'll continue to impress in his time as an Astro. This pitcher that the fan base complained about will be the pitcher that the fan base complains about when the front office lets him walk. Go back, check the receipts on this one, fam. Go back and check them. Kikuchi's great. Kikuchi, I said during the trade that I rated it a C, but I really think that the potential for this Kikuchi trade to be graded higher would have to be if the Astros get to the playoffs, which we were very concerned about that at the time, and if the Astros have a deep playoff run. If Kikuchi helps lead this team to a World Series, this trade's going to be seen in a completely different light than if the Astros limp into the playoffs. So we will see. But either way, I do think Kikuchi has been great so far. Kikuchi's great strikeout percentage is about tied with Spaghetti's, but Kikuchi's veteran presence gives him the nod here. He might not go deep in the games, but you can piggyback with another pitcher that doesn't quite make the playoff rotation. I mean, there's only one spot left here, and about 79 starting pitchers on the Astros roster, even though about 70 of them are on the IL. So drum roll, please, for the last rotation piece of the Houston Astros playoff roster. Number 4, I'm going with Justin Verlander. Maybe it's the romantic in me, but I don't think Verlander is cooked. I already explained that, but I think he's a fairly honest dude, and it seems to me, based on his quotes, that he's still figuring it out. He's feeling good. He feels decent about his fastball. The problem is he needs that breaking ball or off-speed pitch to set it up. So I'm hoping that he figures that out. I think he can. I'm very happy with him feeling good about the fastball. If he can just get another pitch, potentially the off speed and breaking ball both going, he'll be fine. Not just, I'm really hoping this happens for him and he delivers on his next start, not just for him, but for our playoff and not just for him and his playoff rotation hopes, but for the team and their playoff hopes. Seattle just won't go away, even though people are expecting them to. They are still a long shot, and we have to still treat that as them having a shot. The Astros need to win series to put them away. This leaves Ronald Blanco in the pen as a long relief arm, I believe. Ronel has played mostly out of the pen in his career and getting some play out of the pen right now. This sets him up as a best candidate for this, I think. It also sets him up as a comfortable understudy for Justin Verlander, just in case. And speaking of just in case, that leaves Spaghetti Man as a reliever, a break in case of glass or mop-up situational pitcher, as a rookie with a huge amount of mileage on his arm and in uncharted territory. I think this is where you want him. Yes, he was the August AL Rookie of the Month, but then he also, had a really rough outing. I think he bounces back from that outing, but his inexperience and being in uncharted territory, you think you just let him get some playoff experience here. But what do you think? Let me know what your playoff rotation would be set at. Definitely comment. Let me know on social media at Paul Salazar JR, or let me know on SpeakPipe and leave me that voicemail. That's speakpipe.com/SpaceCadetSports. And one fun little internet thing that's going around, one fan theory, one meme, if you will, is essentially bringing back Martin Maldonado to the team to fix Justin Verlander. And, There's two camps as Astros fans. Those are the Martin Maldonado apologists, and I find myself in that camp. I'm a guy that really loved Martin Maldonado. I thought what he did brought a tremendous value to the team. I truly even think, all the way up to, that Martin Maldonado should have been the starting catcher last season, and that Dusty Baker was right. I know not a lot of people share that opinion. A lot of people wanted Yainer Diaz there. I feel like this could be its own special podcast, but essentially my feeling is that Yainer Diaz needed to learn how to take on a full catcher's workload for a season, and to do that last year when the Astros were projected to do so well, and when they had the veteran leadership of Martin Maldonado, who was the pitcher's choice as a battery mate. The timeline just wasn't right for Yainer, and he should have been Martin Maldonado's understudy that season. Whether or not he got played enough is another story. But I do think that Martin Maldonado is an amazing catcher. And then the other camp is essentially the Martin Maldonado is the worst thing that ever happened to the Astros, and the hate is kind of wild. I think both sides, there are extremes on both sides for sure. I feel like I'm fairly reasonable about this, but nowadays any take you have to completely defend with your life. You have to be insane about and win an argument by making stuff up or talking about, fringy stuff, or just, I get it. He wasn't the best hitter. But when you're on a playoff team, your catcher is found money when it comes to hitting. So I get I get why people don't like him, but also I think the fact that people are saying we need to get him back to fix him is the other extreme on the Martin Maldonado apologist camp. So I don't find myself there. I think that Cesar Salazar is a great defensive catcher, has a great rapport with the pitchers. However, the fact of the matter is, pitchers love Martin Maldonado. PLMM. That's for sure. And I know Justin Verlander loves Martin Maldonado. If I was Dana Brown and I'm in a meeting with Justin Verlander and Justin Verlander's telling me Martin Maldonado is the only man that can fix me in time for the playoffs. Like this is some kind of action movie. If Justin Verlander is sitting there and promising me that that's the one missing piece, then yes, I would consider it. But outside of that, I don't think that I would consider it if I was GM Dana Brown. I don't think that, unless Justin Verlander himself is saying that he needs Martin Maldonado to fix him and he knows that's it, then I'm not taking that gamble. However, let's just say that is what Justin Verlander is saying. For whatever reason, I guess because he's on Reddit and he reads it and he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's say that is just for devil's advocate. Play devil's advocate here. Let's say that that's what he's saying. In that case, it wouldn't be... Would it really be the end of the world to have a third catcher? I'm already thinking in my head. I'm already prepping. If the Astros are able to win the AL West decisively, these next couple weeks really go my way, and these next couple of podcasts start turning into playoff rosters, I already was thinking how it would be really smart to have a third catcher on the playoff roster because of the fact that Victor Caratini plays so much first base. Yanner Diaz has been playing so much first base. Yanner Diaz has been DHing. Victor Caratini has been DHing. I think it would be really wise to have a defensive safety net as a third catcher, especially if it was somebody who had the trust of the pitching staff. And for the most part, Cesar Salazar fits that bill. Now, I think the trust that Cesar Salazar has versus the trust that Martin Maldonado has is completely different. I do think Martin Maldonado, has a huge trust from Framber Valdez and from Hunter Brown and from Justin Verlander, obviously. But, I don't think that he is the only answer. So I kind of toss it up to you out there in podcast land. Who would you rather have as your third catcher? Because I do think we need a third catcher. I do think if the Astros are going with this mix at first base of Caratini, Diaz, then they're going to need a third catcher for the roster. So who would you rather have? Would you rather have Cesar Salazar? Or would you want perhaps to take a gamble on Martin Maldonado as your third catcher, knowing that he is your third catcher, knowing that he is only going to go in there for defense at the very end of the game if you need him to sub in for Caratini or Diaz in a playoff game. There could be worse situations for Martin Maldonado. However, I do know how much people would be livid if Martin Maldonado ever got another playoff at-bat from the Houston Astros in a big situation. So there is that too. And Cesar Salazar, while a very small sample size, has done fairly well with his bat for the Houston Astros. So I'm just saying, while I do think this is some grasping from the crazy reaches of the internet, I think there could be worse things that happen for the Houston Astros besides signing Martin Maldonado as your third catcher. However, I would not do it, like I said, unless Justin Verlander is saying this is the only thing that can fix him. Just one more job, bring back Martin. Outside of that, I'd be calling up Cesar Salazar. All right, here we go. Next thing, is Chaz back? In the last podcast, I mentioned that Chazzy has been amazing, going 9 for 22 since his time back up with the team, with very low striking out. I believe only 2 strikeouts. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me now. But is Chazzy back? And if Chaz is back, what does that mean for Myers? Gamble is still there, and we have Jason Hayward, and all of a sudden, this offense that I said fell off is strong again. I think, the fact you can't have too many options, but this also makes it difficult for Espada, I guess, at times to figure out which one of these five, if you're counting Doobie, who is still listed as day to day, to put into that offense to put into that outfield when Tucker or when Jordan is DHing. It's really I feel like Espada has been generally amazing at it this season, even when his options were very limited and he was playing a lot of cabbage, which for those of you who are just paying attention to the Astros season, there was a player named Trey Cabbage on the Astros this season. Some people just pay attention during September. If you're that person, welcome. We invite you. I'll tell you, go back and listen to my podcast. Why not? Why not? Learn about the Cabbage Man. But, I'm just saying this crowded outfield is kind of a good problem to have for Joe Espada. But is Chaz back? I think he is. I think he's kind of eating into some Myers playing time right now. I think Myers is a guy I'd rather have out there for his defense, if I'm being honest, in center field. But having Chazzy back in one of the corner outfield positions would be amazing if he really starts finding it and starts hitting for some power. That would be incredible. Here's hoping, here's praying, but you let me know. I think Chaz is back. I'm saying he's back at least as a hitter. It looks like he's pulling some pitches. I'm hoping that power returns, because if that returns, I think that kind of seals it in, and he might even reclaim that starting spot for good in the corner outfield as a backup when one of the big boys is DHing. Get Chaz some banana pudding. If y'all remember last year, Dusty Baker would give Chaz banana pudding, just because he wasn't a big boy yet, but he wanted Chazzy to be big. So, Chazzy, I'm sending you electronic banana pudding, buddy. I hope you join the ranks of the big boys soon. Let's go ahead and move on to the Houston Texans part of the off-day Goof-Off podcast. The Houston Texans are head of the AFC South as the Titans, Jaguars, and Colts all lost their games. Boo-hoo. Oh boy, I'm glad to see that not only the Houston Texans started the season off strong, but they are able, at least for the first week, to be top of the class in the AFC South, because the AFC South, as we know, is full of a lot of smack talk. I really have to say, I can't believe that the Colts have been talking all that noise just to get their daddy to come to their house and spank them. Richardson looked so uncomfortable in the pocket. I thought he was J.D. Vance on the campaign trail. And Jonathan Taylor, he kind of was like quicksand, in the sense that I used to be scared of it, but now I grew up and I'm unconcerned. As a kid, I'm sorry, I kid. The Colts are a historic football team based off of a Lucky Charms marshmallow. You got to give them their respect. But moving on from a little AFC smack talk, it's time to kind of look at the Houston Texans on this Monday morning with hopefully not battle red colored glasses, because on game day, when the Texans win, it's hard to see nothing but good for me. So the first thing I really have to talk about is the pass protection. I think if we're looking for negatives, if we're kind of looking through them with a fine-tooth comb, was that pass protection looking sus? I think the Texans are still figuring it out. They're still communicating something. We'll get to Joe Mixon later, but something Joe Mixon was nothing but complimentary of basically everybody on the Houston Texans in his press conference, but specifically the offensive line, saying that they were talking a lot. kind of saying that chatter was kind of new to him, getting that much chatter, and something that I was saying was that the offensive line, will improve with communication. So to hear that they are openly communicating that much and that Joe Mixon is hearing it and loving it and that's pushing him to be a better running back is incredible. I think the pass protection will improve. I think this group has a lot of talent. And I think the Indianapolis Colts front seven is just pretty darn incredible. So, I think the fact that they were able to get so much success in the running game, but struggled a little bit in pass protection is perhaps indicative of the fact that the Colts front seven is great at pass rushing. So maybe using that aggressiveness against them in the running game was part of the plan, but they just had trouble containing the great front seven of the Indianapolis Colts. I am going to say, that I don't think this is battle red colored glasses. I'm thinking that they continue to improve as an offensive line and this pass protection will improve, but perhaps they are going to be better as run blockers than pass blockers. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. Do you think I'm being a homer? Do you think this is battle red colored glasses? Let me know, folks. CJ Stroud had a great game, but it can be better. Just like the Pedro Pascal meme, right? Yeah, I'm just like Pedro Pascal. Just for those of you listening, just so you know, I am just like Pedro Pascal. Don't look me up. Don't look up a picture of me. I am just like him. But I love this guy. I love his ceiling. Not Pedro Pascal, but his ceiling is incredible too. But CJ Stroud, what a difference a great quarterback can make. The last time I was, this invested into the Texans, the quarterback, I don't want to talk about him. There's lots of talks about him now, but it's great to see what a difference a quarterback can make. You talk yourself into a mediocre quarterback in the NFL the way you talk yourself into any compromise. Like maybe this obstructed seat at a concert could work. The Arrested Development meme, it didn't work for them, but maybe it could work for us. I really feel like that's how it works in the NFL. There is a huge amount of middling quarterbacks, and that's not to be mean to those quarterbacks. The NFL is a highly competitive league, and that echelon of greatness is very hard to reach. I can't even be a middling podcaster, so I'm not trying to take shots at quarterbacks in the league. I'm just saying, as a fan, we're constantly talking ourselves into these compromises of middling quarterbacks until you find a great one. And we have a great one here in Houston, and it feels so refreshing. I love CJ Stroud. I love the fact that he kind of came in and was like, saying in this press conference that it could be better. I do think he is a guy that is hungry for success. He likes the fact that that the Texans have a bullseye on their back. I think I love Stroud, and that really is saying a lot because I feel like I've been so skeptical. I tend to be a quarterback skeptic, not really wanting to jump on the train too early. But CJ Stroud is him. I am so happy that he is a Houston Texan. Other things of note, Cam Akers was a no-show in this game. A lot of people were expecting Cam Akers to be a difference maker in the running game, kind of the change-up to Joe Mixon's fastball, if you will. But I really think the fact of the matter was that Joe Mixon was finding so much success that they didn't really let Cam spell Mixon too much. And then later, they wanted Pierce to get a couple of touches just to kind of build that confidence. So Cam Akers was just kind of the odd man out. I think Cam Akers will be a part of this offense this year. I just think that Joe Mixon stole the show. And speaking of Joe Mixon is looking good, folks. I am so happy for this edition for the Houston Texans. Shout out Nick. We're on a first name basis, me and the general manager of the Houston Texans. I'm going with it. It's an off day Goof-Off podcast. There's no mistakes. Shout out Nick. for signing Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was looking great. Obviously, like I said in that press conference, he also was incredible, giving a bunch of shout-outs to his teammates. He seems like he is very happy to be a Houston Texan. The run blocking and running game is looking good, and if they can do that against Indianapolis, I am thinking that we do not need to worry about this running game this season. I really think it's hard to be this excited. It really is. I already mentioned how excited I am about quarterback play, but Joe Mixon was giving me flashes of Arian Foster. The patience, the zone running, just kind of really finding his footing there and exploding, through whatever hole presented itself. I really loved what I saw there. I'm excited about this running game. It's hard to curb my enthusiasm, the Larry David special. Who finishes this year with the most targets as we're moving on to receiving here? I think that's kind of my thoughts on this receiving core. I'm asking you directly. Do you think it's going to be Diggs? Do you think it's going to be Collins? Or do you think it's going to be Tank Dell? I really think because Nico Collins, was the leader this game in targets, I think that is kind of indicative. They do want to pass the ball around, but push come to shove, Nico Collins is kind of a better target for Stroud in some situations. I think if everybody remains healthy, I'm going to say Collins gets the most targets. I think there's a situation in which Tank Dell gets a lot of targets too if they get a lot of under short passes and stuff like that, and gadget plays perhaps. But my money would be right now on Collins if everybody remains healthy. And with that being said, another question for you out there in podcast land, Texans fans. How many 1,000-yard receivers do you think the team will have this year? I think there obviously is an argument for all three of those names that I've just mentioned, but the over-under would be, I think, on 2. So what do you think? I'm thinking 2 make it. I don't know. Also, another thing of note was Dalton Schultz was kind of quiet in this game. I really do think that picks up. They were just taking what the defense was giving them there, and I think the defense was giving them less coverage on the receivers, and that's what they were going with. C.J. Stroud in this game, quote, "Everybody had numbers today. Everybody touched the ball." So that kind of, I love that mentality. I think C.J. Stroud is trying to make sure everybody touches the ball. He wants to spread the love, man. We really want to spread the love, man, and C.J. Stroud is doing that. I was mentioning earlier how I love C.J. Stroud not only because he is him, but because he relishes the spotlight. This is his quote here in the press conference. Quote, "We love that pressure. We want that pressure. We're very close, and we love each other." You know who that reminds me of? The Houston Astros. I love that. I love that they want the pressure. I love that they are close. I love that they depend on each other as a team. Honestly, I think this team can go far if that's the mentality they have. I absolutely am loving the fact that he's saying that week 1. And also, shout out to Stroud for taking the high road and not completely blaming the field, saying it could be better, but also it's early in the season, and he was a little clumsy out there. I think if it was me, and if I was playing against my divisional rival, and there's already a bunch of turf hate going on in the media, I would have been petty as hell and blamed the turf and just absolutely dragged the Colts for their turf. So, not only is C.J. Stroud him, he's capable of taking the high road and not just completely fully roasting people when they don't need to be roasted. Also, as we are wrapping up this Texans talk here, just want to let you know that I just want to let you know that for the home opener against the Bears on Sunday night, that we are wearing white. Sorry, I lost my place in my notes here. As you know, my handwriting is also pretty much illegible. I write like a doctor that didn't go to school, so just imagine how bad that must be. We're wearing white for the home opener, and oh no, nothing gets out chocolate. So make sure you bring your Tide pins to this game, folks. It will be messy with all those delicious concessions at the stadium. I will be wearing white Sunday night and probably making a huge mess as well. Real quick here, folks. Let's get to we're rearranging this segment. It's an off day goof off. We can goof off as much as we want. Let's get to a fantasy football update. I've been fantasizing. It's not that kind of a podcast, folks. Don't worry. I've been following football for a long time, but lately it's mostly been data. I've talked about this to plenty of times. We don't need to get heavily into it here, but I kind of took some seasons off as a fully invested football fan, but I still played lots of fantasy. If you do want to know more about that, I already shouted out my Substack, but you can check out my Substack. In my recommendations, I do have a Substack where it's just kind of short fiction, short stories, silly stuff. That's Space Cadet, just proper. You can check out Space Cadet, and I actually wrote an article called "Am I Ready for Some Football?" where you can learn more about this. But I'm a nerd. Essentially, I follow football. I took some seasons off of following football, and all that meant was that I followed it through data and fantasy football. But it's different when you're really watching the games and you're kind of seeing how teams are. So it's like I didn't believe in Pittsburgh because I was like there's no way the Steelers are still that team that's gritty and grinding games out with Mike Tomlin at the helm. I don't believe they still are that team anymore, and they still are. So it's kind of funny to go back to kind of jump back in and see stuff like that. I love fantasy football. Back in the day, I used to be an old football, basketball, and baseball card collecting nerd. I actually was that kid that would go to the grocery store and I would ask my mom for preseason preview magazines. I'd wanted the NFL one, the MLB, anytime the preseason was around, I wanted the magazine. But following stats, is one thing. While I'm doing my fantasy update, I just want to fully encourage everybody to try your best to stay steady this year. When I'm at my best is when I'm staying steady and making sure I'm setting those lineups. Life is tough. I get it. I've had a couple seasons where I've been too busy or depressed to stay that consistent, but try your best to stay consistent with me this year. I am not projected to win my fantasy football game this week. I will not win it. There's no Monday night miracle for me. I have a 1% chance of winning my game against NB Sports. It's in the game, which is my good friend Say is going to beat me. Honestly, they had a much better draft than I did. They really did. Shout out to Say, who will probably beat me by like 80 points. I'll let you know when it happens, but right now it's 62.96 to 145.14. Basically, I have a lot of points on the bench. I might have gotten a little too cute setting my lineup, and I'm paying for it in week 1 when I probably I don't know. I don't think there was a world in which I would have set a better lineup to win. I just, maybe would have. I benched Jamar Chase because I was worried about what production would look like for him, and that was a bad call. But even with him in the lineup, I don't think I would have, in any world, I would have set the right lineup this week. But we'll look into that in our NFL Week 1. NFL Week 1 retrospective, I guess is what I'm saying, and NFL Week 2 preview, which is coming up in a couple of days here. But that's our fantasy football update. And before we get to the Astros preview, we are... You know what? Let's jump straight to the Astros preview. I'm ready for it, folks. A little bit more Astros time here. Tomorrow, the Astros are playing the Oakland A's. The pitchers are going to be the A's' Osvaldo Bido, who's a right-handed pitcher. He is 5-3 on the season with a 3.41 ERA and a 1.09 WHIP. He has a 1.4 WAR in 16 games. This guy is pitching really great. Obviously, the A's haven't won a lot of games, but in his short time with the A's, he's contributed to a lot of success. This guy has only played a limited sample size for the A's, but has been great. And he will be playing against Spaghetti, who is looking to bounce back from his really rough outing and turn back the clock and go back to August. Spaghetti this season has 125 innings pitched with 27 strikeout percentage, a 10.9 walk percentage, a 35.1 ground ball percentage, 4.82 ERA with 151 strikeouts. So we're hoping Spaghetti finds his groove once again. On Wednesday, the A's trot out J.P. Sears, who's 11-10 on the season with a 4.34 ERA. Really low strike percentage number of 18.5. He has 122 strikeouts on the season. His FIP is 4.49. So we're really hoping that we can put the hurt on J.P. Sears in this game, whose numbers aren't that great. He will be pitching against Diesel Hunter Brown, who has 153 innings pitched with a 25.2 strikeout percentage, an 8.6 walk percentage, a 48.4 ground ball percentage, and a 3.41 ERA with a 3.6 FIP. I think Hunter Brown definitely will give us the edge in this game. On Thursday, this is the early game. Joey Estes will be pitching for the Oakland A's. He is 6-7 on the season. We have seen him already this year and bounced him out of a game before. We're hoping we can do that again. He has a 4.46 ERA, 18.7 strikeout percentage, a really low walk percentage in 5, but also a low ground ball percentage in 23.4. We're really hoping that we can put the hurt on this struggling pitcher who has some really struggling games. He can be a little Jekyll Hyde at times, and he will be pitching against Framber Valdez, who has 157 innings pitched, a 24.6 strikeout percentage, a 8 walk percentage, and a 60.1 ground ball percentage. Good Lord, have mercy. His ERA is 2.97 with a 3.21 field independent pitching, with a 3.4 WAR on the year. 153 strikeouts from Valdez. So Valdez is looking good. With these three, we feel good about our pitching options. We just need that offense to continue to impress. And with Tucker back, I really feel confident that Espada will find the right mix to keep a strong lineup against these A's. But the A's can combat with some power as well, with Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker being crowned the new Bash Brothers. 21 home runs with a 139 WRC plus for Lawrence Butler on the year, with Brent Rooker having 35 home runs and 169 WRC plus on the year as well. Have mercy indeed. This team is third in the league in home runs behind the Yankees and the Orioles. I don't know if you knew that, but this team might not do a lot of things well, but what they do well is hit the long ball right now. As a team struggles in a lot of areas, that power is really undeniable. And, we really don't know much about the future of the A's as an organization, but these two are really trying to make some noise for their future on the field. We will see what these Bash Brothers are looking like. And obviously with the flame-throwing Mason Miller, the future of the A's could be interesting. And that's not just about their moving around. That's actually about their on-field stuff. But we will see what the A's do, because they really aren't great at retaining talent or picking up big free agents. So we'll see what the A's can do. But the future is not looking as dim as we think it would be for the Oakland A's. So, we will have to battle this team that is still a professional baseball team, even though they are the lowly A's. And to close out our Goof-Off off-day podcast today, we are going to play a little game of Find the Imposter. I previewed that the Houston Dynamo made the cut once again. And that's right, this is Dynamo Corner. We are going to take a corner kick here and talk about your Houston Dynamo. The way we're going to do it today in this game of Find the Imposter is I'm going to name 5 names. 4 of them are on the current Dynamo roster. The other name, I completely made up. If they are a real person, it isn't on purpose. Okay, so what you can do is comment, call in, or let me know, DM on social media who the imposter is, and you win. What you win is nothing but bragging rights. But hey, sometimes in this world, all you need is bragging rights. Okay, H-Town, here we go. Find the imposter. We have Andrew Tarbell, Brooklyn Reigns, Jan Johan, Franco Escobar, and Nelson Quinones. Or Quinones, sorry. But I gotta get that Inye right. Come on, who am I here? But yeah, find the imposter. Let me know if you know the imposter in that group without cheating. I know most of you in class have your cell phones out right now, but this is on the honor system. Try to do this without cheating, and let me know if you found the imposter. And that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. I really enjoyed today's off-day goof-off, and I hope you did too. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really, really do appreciate. Please, wherever you are listening to this podcast, smash some buttons for me. Like, rate and review, subscribe and share. Give us a 5-star rating. That really, really does help. Or if you would be so kind, share this with some other H-Town hustlers out there that you know need some good vibes on this Monday, or whenever you're listening to. Just share it with them. That would really be helpful. This podcast is it's a small podcast. We only go as far as our listeners take us. So please share us with people and give us those yummy 5-star reviews. We really do help it. This podcast is supported by viewers like you. Thank you so much. Please check out the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can put your email in and get every single article, every meme dump, every podcast, and every occasional video podcast emailed directly to you, so you don't miss anything this season, and that's for free. However, if you want to be so kind and support the podcast, support the blog, it is a labor of love. But if you want to support me, you can do that. Substack does take their percentage, but it does go to supporting me and giving me money to buy doggy treats for Carla. You can do that. Once again, this podcast is supported by listeners like you. Reach out on social media with your opinions, or you can call in. Reach out at Paul Salazar Jr. on social media, or list on all the platforms there. I'm listed as Paul Salazar Jr. Or you can call in now at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports and let me know what you think. Let me know who the imposter is. Let me know what you think of the Houston Texans offensive line. Who do you think is going to get the most targets this season, or how many 1,000-yard receivers we have, or any other opinion you may have. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it so much. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.